Well, glory be and mercy me, we've done it yet again. As you can see behind me, it's a snowy, snowy, snowy day, and so I think I'm just gonna stay inside and do a video recording from here, from my couch, with my little pug, who's probably gonna interrupt this halfway through, and that's fine. So, yesterday, or throughout the weekend rather, I have been reporting on a CTV report that has been reporting that polls are indicating that up to 60% of Canadians are reporting difficulty feeding themselves, right? This isn't to say that they're starving, they're just not able to feed themselves, which, that's no good, is it, Milo? Is it Milo? Yes. Milo doesn't care for that, neither do I. And the pushback that I have been getting from people who I would call defenders of the death cult has been shocking. Statements of just outright denial, the inability to accept reality, the desire to denigrate the people who are suffering, the majority of people, right? 60% is a majority number. One of my favorite interactions was the person who said to me, oh, well, they only polled 5,000 people, so it doesn't indicate everything across Canada, because that's always the complaint when it comes to polling, right? Like, oh, the polling data isn't accurate because the number's so low. So this means that this person thinks that 3,000 people responding, yeah, I'm having trouble getting food and shelter, can be dismissed because the number is so low compared to the rest of Canada, right? 3,000 people saying they're having trouble getting food and shelter, and this person doesn't give a shit. Right? Like that. This is the kind of big brain stuff. This is the kind of brain that we're talking about when we're talking about conservatives and the capitalist death cult. And more, I have been researching and I've been seeing and I've been trying to find people who have actually done studies on conservatism and people who are conservative and the conservative brain. And all of the evidence that I am finding, right, all of the people who have ever done this study on the subject are coming out saying that conservatism is a form of psychopathy, right? It's a form of psychopathy. That the people who are doubled down on this system, right, are bereft of the empathy and compassion required to actually maintain this system, right? That's the great irony about this capitalist model, right? That there are people who are having trouble feeding themselves, rents are skyrocketing, right? Everything's going out of control, and the entire system is based on the idea of individual charity, right? But the primary beneficiaries of the system, right? The primary people who are the beneficiaries of the system lack the empathy and the compassion by definition to actually do the charity work required in order to maintain the system that they believe is actually good. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, literally, like, think about this. Like, all of these rich people would just have to give charity, right? They just have to, like, I think about Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos could just walk around the streets of Los Angeles handing out $1,000, like, bundles of thousands of dollars, right? And he'd still be making money while doing it, right? He could just literally go around, give, like, millions of dollars to people. Like, this is what he could spend his entire life doing. He's not going to do that, right? And the reason he's not going to do that is because once you attain a certain amount of wealth, once you become a conservative, right, you detach from reality, you begin to invent your own reality, you begin to create a reality around yourself, and you surround yourself with people who, if any, turn into dissenters or even question you, you can simply be rid of them, right? You don't need to actually live in a community that is real or exists or is organic or any of those sorts of things. You can create your own reality, right? And if turns out that if you're a billionaire who creates your own reality, well, you get rid of the people who say, hey, maybe you should give your money away. And you say things like, oh, well, if these workers want to make more money, they can just work harder, right? Like I did, because I can just ignore the, $300,000 startup money that Bezos gets, these sorts of things. And so this is the hill that we need to climb, right? And I don't see too many people talking about the reality of this, that we are still talking to these conservatives. We are still talking to people who are deeply entrenched in the death cult as if they can be swayed back. I think this is kind of the point that I'm landing on with this, which is that there's still many among us who think that oh, if only we just create the right argument, if only we create the right statement, if only we just show them, they'll see the truth and they'll have their come to Jesus moment. And that's simply not going to happen, right? They have lost the ability to have empathy and compassion and reason and rational thought. And my experience over the weekend completely confirms the reality of this. I am showing people a poll and a document that is reported in a major news media source saying 60% of Canadians, when polled, are struggling to get food, right? They are food insecure, 60% of people in the society. And the response is, nah. Literally, the response is just like, nah, right? So evidence doesn't matter, right? Base compassion doesn't matter. Empathy doesn't matter. They won't have their minds changed. The small grace that exists in the conversation is simply that we outnumber them. That is the small grace that exists in the conversation. We outnumber them, but we're so fractious, we're so spread around, and we believe that they can become our allies still. And this is because we don't have a conceptualization of class consciousness in this society. That's really fundamentally what it comes down to. We don't actually understand the concept of class, that everything is about identity politics, everything is about this. So if you present evidence in a class-based way, even the people who should ostensibly be your ally are unable to connect to it. They're unable to understand it because they themselves, the people who are sympathetic to your cause, lack the ability to understand the society from a class-based perspective. So not only do we have a group of people who have fallen into a form of psychopathy, right? We have their victims are unable to understand their own victimization. And so where does all of that energy end up getting funneled into? It's those immigrants. The immigrants are stealing your jobs and the immigrants are doing the thing. And you hear restatements of this over and over again, right? You hear restatements of this over and over again. Like any diversification of any institution is a threat because black people are going to come and take your jobs, white people. And everything is distilled into race and gender politics. And so the end logical result of that is the destruction of one racial group over another. Whereas class politics says that like 99% of the populace is workers, right? Like 90 to 95% of the the culture is workers. And our primary antagonist is this small group of psychopathic death cultists who are actively working to destroy the society and ourselves, and themselves along with it. And if we don't come to the realization that that's the case, and if we don't see things like the 60% people who are saying that they're starving, if we don't understand that they are the canaries in the coal mines, we're beyond canary at the coal mines. We were still putting up with homeless people. We were still throwing disabled people into the streets. We're still doing that kind of stuff. We were doing that even before the pandemic. And that's going to get worse. But now it's going to be more Canadians, and it's going to be more people, and it's going to be over and over and over again. And while it's happening, the people who are defending the death cult will deny it. Straight up. So we have to become militant in the face of this. We have to simply see these people for what they are, which is detached, delusional death cultists. Isn't that right, Milo? Isn't that right? Well, me and Milo, we want you to know you are a quantum being living in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to pretend like that's not what's going on. Don't let them. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.